Started. So welcome to everybody that is joining us. My name is Katie Hendrickson. I am a senior living sales counselor at Riverwoods, Manchester. Riverwoods is hosting this webinar. So we are going to talk about New Hampshire real estate update and selling in the off season, if that's applicable to you or maybe applicable in the future. So a little bit of housekeeping. Everybody is on mute and your cameras are not visible. So if you raise your hand or say something out loud, we won't be able to see and hear you, but we definitely utilize our Q&A box, which again is either at the top or bottom of your screen. So please feel free to write in any questions, any comments you have at any time through the presentation. We will be answering them at the very end. We always welcome suggestions for the future. So if there's things that we can do to improve this webinar, or if there's a topic you want to discuss for the future, let us know. We always are interested in, being better and new ideas. So without further ado, let's go into our presentation. So I did mention that this webinar is hosted by Riverwoods, and Riverwoods is a group of 3 continuing care retirement communities. So for some of us that are joining, this might be the very first time you've heard that term. For others, you might be already on our wait list and know the whole deal. But we always like to go over it once again, because we can always learn one more fact and one more bit of information that might be useful. So a continuing care retirement community is also called a CCRC, and there are a bunch in the US and New England area. So a CCRC is both an insurance product and a lifestyle choice. And we at Riverwoods like to advertise it as an insurance product because it gives you so much peace of mind that other styles of community just can't, attain. CCRCs answer, if you needed any care in the future, who's providing that care? Where is that care coming from? What are the standards of that care? And most importantly, is it guaranteed? So it really, really is a special concept and a really awesome opportunity for people to just have peace of mind for the future. So within a CCRC, what you are doing is prepaying and insuring your care needs, which could be assisted living, memory support, or nursing. So with that prepaying, we call that an entrance fee. And part of the insurance product is that some of that entrance fee and some of the monthly fee you pay here is tax deductible, which is a great advantage. Every year, our financial performance is reported to the state and reviewed, and all of our contracts are reviewed by the state that the community is operated in. So for us, that would be New Hampshire. But apart from the ensuring of care and peace of mind, it's also a lifestyle choice because it is just so fun. And there's so many amenities here, especially at Riverwoods. So 62 is our minimum age to move in, and we have more and more people moving in at that age to take advantage of everything. So you would move in at an independent living level, and what you get is transportation if you want it, educational opportunities, committees to be a part of, obviously social opportunities since you're in a community of new friends and acquaintances, but most importantly, to stay in control of what your future looks like. So it's you who's making this decision and you who's taking advantage of everything that a CCRC has to offer. So a little bit about Riverwoods specifically. We were founded about 30 years ago by 2 women, literally at a breakfast table, Mariana Hatch and Rosemary Coffin, and they founded Riverwoods Exeter. And 30 years later, as you can see on your screen, we are a family of 3 communities that is just thriving and all have wait lists and doing wonderfully. So all 3 communities share the same values and are advised by a volunteer board focused on operations. We want to do great things for our residents, and we're always looking to the future. We are overseen by the Riverwoods group, which is our supportive organization. And it provides professional fee-based services such as human resources, marketing, IT, etc. And it also funds any at-risk projects such as, any expansions or renovations, things like that. Each of our 3 communities is financially independent, but we are always in a group mindset for how can Riverwoods be, bigger and better and just help our residents to the best of our ability. So if you have any questions on Riverwoods and the CCRC concept, please feel free to type in any questions or reach out to a sales counselor at any of the communities, get an information packet, etc. So enough of myself talking. I want to introduce our presenter, which is Bill Weidecker. So Bill has been in the field of real estate for about 40 years. And in 2004 opened Keller Williams Fine Homes. He told me when we were, putting this webinar together, it takes a lot to like something for 40 years and it just keeps getting better. So he has a wealth of knowledge and we encourage questions. So definitely feel free to ask away. And, Bill, feel free to take it away.
Well, thank you, Katie. And as you were going through the CCRC sort of benefits, one of the things I immediately thought of is, would you folks be willing to do some of the maintenance chores at my place, or do I need to be a member? That would
be a great advantage.
Yeah, just you subcontract it out. That's appealing to me. You mentioned 40 years. This February it'll be 41. I sat for the real estate exam in 1983, and I was 21 years old when I became licensed. So everybody can do the math. I'm 61. I'll take the math out of it for you. And it is a great business because you work with clients and you're helping them through a process. And so we're going to talk today first about the realtor's role and representation of the client. We're going to talk about the market history here in New Hampshire specifically. And I will say, because there's people from all over the country, if you have questions after today and you're needing to know information about other parts of the country, I can assist. You can reach out to me there and I can put you in touch with somebody. But we'll talk about New Hampshire market conditions. We will talk about this concept of a buyer's market versus a seller's market and what the difference is between the two. We'll just talk a little bit about home buying and selling in general. In many cases, people go through the home buying process or the home selling process somewhere between 10 and 15 times in their lifetime. And so it is not something that's done every year, at least unless you're moving, getting transferred in an organization often. But so it is foreign to most people when they go through it each time because so many things change. And we'll talk about the process, and then we'll leave some time for Q&A at the balance of that. So let's get right into it. First of all, realtors are members of the National Association of Realtors, and we adhere to a strict code of ethics. And I think it's important to point out is that not every real estate agent is a realtor. So I want that to be clear. So not every agent that is every agent that's a non-realtor doesn't have the same code of ethics. Doesn't mean that they're not ethical. It just means that they're not adhering to it or don't have to. We're going to talk a little bit about seller agency and buyer agency, and then New Hampshire law as it relates to disclosure, because many of you are getting into the concept of, I'm going to sell my house. Do I need to talk about the failed septic system from 2 years ago? That kind of thing. So we'll get there too in the Q&A. And so let's talk first of all about single-family residential prices in 2023. We're at a historic high. We've seen 12 consecutive years, one year after another, where the prices have been higher. This year, more than the prior year, 12 years in a row. And so now in New Hampshire, statewide, the median sales price is $471,000. And here's what you need to know. In 2011, which does not seem like that long ago, at least it doesn't to me, the median sales price was $192,000. For those of us that are been paying attention, you know what's happened with mortgage rates, and they've been climbing steadily, and they were still increasing 6% over the first 11 months. And actually, they got close to 8%, 7.8% in 2023 here, just in about a month and a half, 2 months ago. We've seen some relief. Rates are starting to ease a bit. I do believe that the market has become they've probably gotten over their skis a bit. I heard that on CNBC today in terms of thinking that the rates are going to come down fast here in 2024. They may have some moderation in the mortgage market, but not as much as all of us would like. And so there's some basic information. Here's what I want to show you based on the 10 counties in New Hampshire. And this is through October. So we don't have the November numbers yet. It usually takes about 10 days for those numbers to be for us to get them all in. And so we got the October numbers, and you can see that the units sold is the third column over, is down 21% statewide, 21% fewer homes sold this year versus last year through October. And so you'd say, well, my goodness, that doesn't seem very good. Well, it's inventory driven. There's lots of people not moving, and we'll talk about that and what I foresee. Now, what you need to know is the sales price, which we just talked about, in the median price statewide is $471,000. That's up almost 6% this year versus last year through October. If you're living in any of these counties in New Hampshire, you can kind of see what that means. Look at Rockingham County. The median price in Rockingham County is up 4.3% to $600,000. And lots of that is driven because those are the seacoast communities. Seacoast communities have just been a huge demand, and that's driven price up. And so the other thing that stands out to me on this graph is Coos County. And Coos County is the northern county in the state, for those that may be unaware. And you can see that prices are up 14.1% in Coos County. And that's really because that is kind of the last pocket of affordability in terms of price. The median price in Coos County is $228,000. So you can see why those numbers are up 14% versus last year. I love putting these numbers together each time I come to the River Woods community. Some of it's repetitious because it's history, but this is 25 years of information here. So you can see in 1998, the median sales price was $127,500. And that price steadily went up. 1999, it went up 7%. 2000, it went up 15%. 2001, it went up 14%. You can see it 15, 11. Now, gang, here's what I'm going to tell you. Those double-digit appreciation numbers are just we call it the unsustainable boom. Prices went up from 1998 to 2005, 112%. to $270,000. I want you to keep that number in mind, 270 and 2005. And you'll see why as we get a little deeper here. So 112% increase in 7 years. And then the financial reversal, the Great Recession, as it was called. You'll notice in 2006, there starts to be a little peel back in units, a big peel back, double digits, and then pricing drops just under 2%. 2007, close to 2%. Then we're in full bloom. 2008, 10, 2009, 10, and then a little bit of a correction in 2010, where it was up 1, and then 11, down 6. You'll notice there, now $270,000 median sales price, and in 2005, is now $201,000 in 2011, a 24% drop. And then notice what happens. From 2012 through to 2022, you can see the appreciation rates year after year after year after year. And that's been the run that the market has gone on. I want to draw your distinction to 2017. You'll notice the median price at the end of 2017 was $266,000, not $270,000 that it was in 2005. So you can see a dozen years has gone by before we get above the median price of 2005 into the 283 range. Prices have gone up 118% from 2012 to 2022, that 10-year run. And we've really seen, a dozen years of price increases, every year being a little better than the last. It's really, this is it. It's about the inventory. We are in a active housing shortage, pretty much nationwide. And I'll tell you, we've got a metric here that I'm going to show you about where it relates to pre-pandemic active listings on the market versus today. And there are pockets of the country that we're calling real estate inventory deserts, meaning there's just so barren of inventory. You'll see in a moment. It really is supply and demand. Inventory had been high 9 to 10 years ago, and most of that is gone. It's been bought up, and with decreasing inventory and this huge demand that has continued to happen, in spite of the mortgage rates, prices are the only variable, and they've been driven up. As I said, they're up 6% this year versus last year. Certainly slowing, but not anything that indicates to me we're going to see a retreat just yet. We had a shortage before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, and we saw this in the early part of it. We saw this huge job loss, tons of anxiety. Some parts of the country, people weren't able to buy or sell real estate. It was considered non-essential, and so the market just stopped. In New Hampshire, we were more fortunate. People were able to move and under stricter guidelines. But with the uncertainty and an inclination to stay put, the inventory shortage became kind of a crisis. And so to give you an idea of how low inventory is, here's a graph. And yellow on this graph is single-family homes, and blue are condominiums. And if you look at the left side of the graph, you'll notice that's inventory close to 10,000 houses, 15,000 houses on the market in the yellow part. And the right side of the graph shows you where we are today. And as of this morning, there were about 1,400 houses in the whole state on the market, active to be purchased. And you'll notice the same is true with the blue line, condominiums. It's almost a flat line from 2020 down, and to the point where we really have, as of this morning, again, 350 condominiums on the market statewide. Some towns have, one or two on the market. A town like Bedford, New Hampshire, has two condominiums on the market in the entire town, and that is not the norm. So that gives you an idea of the inventory. Here's the housing deserts, if you will, nationwide. The dark brown means the inventory is 50% less inventory on the market or more since 2019 or prior to the pandemic. The sort of turquoise or aquamarine color means there's 50% more. And then anything that's shades of gray or means we're kind of the same as we were before. I just draw your attention to the northeast or northern part of the country. Completely brown if you look at it. It's a desert in terms of active inventory, which bodes well if you're a seller, because it's going to be a seller's market. But it's interesting because you'll notice parts of Florida, Some markets are darker than the others. Some are lighter than the others. Same thing in California. Much of the middle part of the country is really sort of seen inventory kind of the way it was, which we only know. Our perception is based on our own local reality, and we think it might be that way everywhere. And so you need to know that we are in a real estate desert in the at least in the short term. And when I say short term, it's probably going to be the next 24 months before we start to see some kind of a balancing of the market, in my opinion, unless there's some huge event and which could change things. So that's the inventory compared to pre-pandemic levels. Let's talk a little bit about a buyer's market versus a seller's market. And we'll start with what is a balanced market. In a balanced market, it means neither the buyer nor the seller has any particular leverage, unlike a seller's market where the seller has the leverage or the buyer has the leverage in a buyer's market. It's really all about inventory. And a balance in the classical definition of the real estate markets is somewhere between 5 and 7 months. And I'll give you my opinion on what balance might mean as we get a little deeper here. And that's what that means is it's the number of months that it's going to take to sell off the current inventory if nothing else came on the market. And so right now, to give you an idea, we're about 1.8 months worth of supply, under 2 months worth of supply in the state of New Hampshire. So that's a balanced market. A buyer's market, and I'm going to just point out, I noticed in the slide this morning, just too late to change it. We got two errors on the next 2 slides, and I'll point it out. A seller's market means this: no inventory on the market or very low. Sellers have got the leverage, and if you have friends of yours that have sold houses, or if you've sold a house in the recent history, you'll notice there's lots of multiple offers coming in, little cash in some cases, people waiving all kinds of conditions in order to be able to get the house, paying more than list price. Lots of creativity because buyers were and have been a bit desperate. And buyers likely to offer over asking price. And I have here typically 8 or more months supply. The next slide, if you look, where it says typically 4 months, that's what it's supposed to be. When you have less than 4 months worth of supply, let me go back, less than 4 months worth of supply, you're in a seller's market. So, and when you have more than 8 months of supply, you're in a buyer's market. That being said, the buyer's market means there's plenty of property on the market, like we saw back in 2011 or 12, where there's close to 15,000 single family homes, plenty to choose from. And the sellers were more willing to offer incentives, get more realistic on pricing, adjust their price more quickly, things of that nature in a buyer's market, and willing to pay closing costs, willing to leave amenities that might typically go. You get the point as it relates to the a buyer's market. You're working to entice them to buy a property when there's plenty to buy. Again, here's the supply of inventory, and you'll notice yellow is 2 months of supply, and condos currently is 1.6. So I said 1.8, meaning it's kind of, I wanted to give you a middling number there. But now you'll notice in 2021, we only had 1.3 months supply on single family homes and 1.1 in condos. And while that's gone up incrementally in the last couple of years, it's nothing that is indicating to me we're going to see a major shift here. We just don't have enough current inventory on the market because prices are so high and interest rates have been so high. It's affected affordability, which this may cause pause if the mortgage rates don't moderate themselves, and they appear to be doing just that. But to give you an idea, in 2013, in January, the median household income was $300, which means it was 3 times greater than what was going to be three times greater than what was going to be necessary to afford the median priced home. Now that number in 2023 is 58, which means the median price, the median income, household income, is 58% of what is necessary to afford the median priced home. So that does not mean that we're seeing buyers not buying. It's just, what are the qualifications of the buyer? And we've seen some buyers have to go on the sideline because they're not making enough money. The sort of hard news in all of that is that they haven't seen any relief in the rental market either. There just isn't enough rental property out there. There's about a 1% vacancy rate in the city of Manchester, and that gives you an idea that there's been plenty of upward pressure on rents as well. So the affordability index is something that we need to take into account, because it will create kind of a flattening eventually if the rates don't moderate down into what I'm going to say the low 6s to mid 5s, because people just can't, many buyers can't afford to buy. I love this graph because this tells you about mortgages and the mortgage rates. The big blue chunk of that pie is 44.7%. Call it 45. Those are folks that have mortgages with an interest rate between 3 and 4%. And then if you look at the next biggest chart, the darker blue, 26% have less than 3% mortgages. 71% have mortgage rates of 4% or less in this country for those that have mortgages. So that gives you a really big clue as to what's going on there, but especially homeowners that might move but have a 3% mortgage to trade it in for a 7% mortgage. There's not a lot of motivation. Now, that having been said, what we have noticed as the rates have moderated in the last month, refinances of mortgages have ticked up. And so I think that's good news, because there are going to be some people that are going to refinance to a lower rate, those that have a greater than 6% mortgage, which isn't a big number. If you notice there's less than 4% of the mortgage holders or mortgagors in this country have something greater than 6%. So that tells us a lot. As a matter of fact, the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors earlier this year predicted that the divorce rates in the country might actually tick down ever so slightly because they love their 3% mortgage more than their spouse. And so they weren't going to get divorced. But I don't know whether that's come true or not, but gives you an idea how popular the low interest rates were. For many of you who have been in the world here like I have and have owned a home for some time, you know that these 3% mortgages were something that we'd never seen, and up until the last handful of years. I mean, we are the baby boomers, if you will, that saw interest rates. When I started in the business, the mortgage rates were 16%, 17% in 1983, and sellers were paying 4 discount points in order for the buyer to get that kind of rate. Moving on, what's happening locally? All real estate's local, of course. And so, as I said, if you want a more detailed idea about your town, we can provide that for you. Certainly, you can reach out. Now, here's Hillsborough County. These charts are I'll move through them quickly because they're a little small here. But the median sales price in Hillsborough County is $500,000, and you can see that it's sort of steadily gone up. And to me, it is an amazing number because even though it's $500,000 in October, through the year to date, it was $490,000. So I feel like we're likely to see our year finish a little higher than the $490,000 number, because I think there's nothing. The December numbers, at least my guess is from what I'm seeing, that we're going to see continued pressure on prices. Merrimack County, a little bit less, $425,000. $440,000 is the median price year to date. And then lastly, Rockingham County you'll notice 600,000 year to date, but look at the number in October. It's the median price was 625. So there's continued pressure in Rockingham County. And I think lots of it is people want to live out in that part of the state. And that's driven the prices. Hillsborough, Rockingham, and Merrimack County are kind of the leaders in pricing in the state. I always look at those numbers because those are the three populated counties. And then Lawrence Yun, who I quoted before, he's the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors. He believes that we've seen the peak in terms of interest rates, and he's forecasted that interest rates will drop to between 6% and 7% by the spring. And I think he's accurate. I just think it will be probably in the middle versus closer to 6. And we're close to 7.1 is what I saw this week. And so, we'll just have to see what the Fed does. Jerome Powell has tried to put a damper on this exuberance, if you will, by saying, hey, look, we're not clear that we're going to do any rate cutting in Q1. A lot of it's going to depend on whether or not they're convinced that the economy is cooling. The jobs report will be an interesting one to see, and that'll be out tomorrow. And we'll have a little bit of a better idea of whether or not it's in fact cooling. For buyers, it's this: prices are increasing, but there's still plenty of unique buying opportunities. And what we've said with most of our buyers, look, if you can lock in the payment that works for you now, and houses are still very unique. And if you can lock that in, should rates go down, and while we think they will, I'm not willing to offer any kind of a guarantee to our clients to say, should they go down, you could certainly refinance then. As a matter of fact, there are lenders out there now who are willing to offer some form of incentive to refinance with them for low or no costs, kind of a thing, because you're getting the mortgage from them in the first place. Again, inventory is low, not so easy to find properties. Sellers, take advantage. Prices are historically high, inventory is historically low, and you've got the leverage there. And then the bottom line is it's still a seller's market. And I will just say, we talked about the title of this is the off season. And when I first started in the business, there was a definite seasonality in the real estate business. More people put their homes on the market in the spring, and we saw this huge increase of inventory and a huge increase of buyer activity. And now, because inventory is such that it's low, we are close to the lowest numbers of the year right now. There's an opportunity through the holiday season, and we've represented clients last holiday season and early in the year, January, February, where they were able to negotiate with a buyer and sell the property and give up, even close on the property and stay in possession until some date certain in the spring, and then move then. And so there's a lot of that going on. So don't necessarily think you should wait if you don't want to wait. And I would say talk to a real estate professional and think about your timing. One of the things I will say is that when people decide they're going to move, they say, well, I'll move in the next few months, 4 months, 3 months, 6 months. And then something happens. Something great might happen, and they go, oh my God, we got to get the house on the market immediately now. And they're not ready. And so engaging a real estate professional is a good first move, because the timing is still in your control, and let them work with you to get everything ready so that in some cases, pictures can be done and things of that nature. So really it becomes very quick to go to market versus having to take 2 months or 3 months. And engaging that professional. Also engage a real estate professional, realtor, before you start spending money in your house, okay? Because we might recommend you not spend money on certain items that could be, give you no return. So choose a realtor, determine your value, inspect the physical plant of the property, and then, make some preparations. Staging if necessary. It's really property preparation more than staging. It seems to be a widespread thing because we've got gotten so used to HGTV and that everything's got to be staged, and not everything does. And so that's it for me. This final slide is yours, Katie, and then I'll take any questions.
Thank you so much, Bill. That was really informative. As someone who is trying to be a future buyer, I've been taking my own notes for this presentation. So, now is the time to ask any questions to Bill. So again, feel free to take advantage of your Q&A box and type in any questions, things you want to learn more about, any clarifications on anything that was discussed. But while we sort of give it a moment, I do want to let everyone know that for Riverwoods, we have a very special announcement, which is that we are going to be launching our new unified website on the 12th. So instead of having 3 separate domains for Manchester, Exeter, and Durham, there's going to be a one-stop shop, and then we'll lead you everywhere you want to go in terms of community interest, floor plans, etc. So on your screen is the new website, which is riverwoodsnh.org. And it's more user-friendly, a better layout, and just altogether a great improvement on our individual sites. So we hope that you enjoy it, and definitely let us know if you have any comments towards the new site. But again, that will be launching on the 12th. So let's go through some questions.
Katie, I'm gonna stop the screen share. Does that make sense?
It either works fine. You can stop that and just have our pictures on the screen.
There we go.
All right, so the first question I think goes back to a previous slide of what category do townhouses fit into? And I think meaning condo versus single family home, things like that.
They fit into in the state of New Hampshire into the condominium statistics.
Right. So another question is, I've heard on the news that how commissions for real estate are calculated may change in the future. Do you have any insight on this issue?
Yeah, there's been a recent lawsuit with regard to the realtors bundling real estate commissions. So in other words, without getting into specific numbers because there's so many different parts of the country, but first of all, I think the most important thing to take away from here is real estate commissions are negotiable. They are not set or regulated by anybody. So you as a property owner looking to sell your house can negotiate with your realtor or any amount of realtors to shop and figure out what might be your best opportunity. And of course, it all comes down to this. It's sort of like pricing of an automobile. There are automobiles out there that have a lower price than others, and some have a higher price. And I always say this, is that in the absence of value, price is always going to be the key indicator. If I can buy the same pound of coffee in one store versus another, and one's $1 cheaper a pound, well, what's the value differential? And so back to the lawsuit case is there was this bundling of fees. In other words, I'll list a property for a seller client, and I am willing to give a portion of my fee to a buyer agent to entice them to bring their client to buy your house. And the lawsuit, which is now going to be under appeal, has said that there really ought to be a decoupling of those fees, and that because there was this pressure on fees to be higher towards sellers, or fees to be, in some cases, there's even a buyer case that's yet to be tried that says that this class action buyer case that says we could have paid less money in buyer agent fees if we were negotiating on our own behalf. It is really yet to be decided, and my suspicion is going to be this is going to be 2 years in appeals. Maybe it'll be settled, but really it comes down to this. The big takeaway for property owners going to sell their houses: have these discussions with the broker you're going to hire, or you're thinking of hiring, and and get a feel for what you're going to get for your money and what they're going to give, if anything, to a buyer agent. So it's just really, I think, honestly, this is very, very good for the consumers out there, because it's going to be a much more vibrant conversation these days between the client, the future client, and the agent, because it's top of mind for everybody.
Awesome, thank you. We have another question. With selling a year or two down the road, how far in advance should we be working with a local realtor?
So I would say this, and I don't know where this individual is from, but I will just say this to you. Start with them now, because you don't, we've had clients of ours who I can remember we had clients of ours that we engaged with them years in advance. We actually took photographs of their property, the exterior of their property and the interior of their property, just in case they wanted to put it on the market. The photos would be done. We wouldn't have to wait for our photographer. In some cases, as they get busy in the spring, can be, you know, a week to 2 weeks. And we had those pictures for over 2 years, to the point where some of the interior pictures, they changed the paint colors in the room in a couple of cases. So, but lots of it is planning. And so you can, for really just no risk at all, have the conversation with a potential agent. You're kind of trying before you're buying, meaning you're getting a chance to meet with them, talk to them, get a sense of what their advice and wisdom would be. And, you know, you might never choose to move, but should you choose to move in the 2 years on your plan, you're ready. Should you choose to move more quickly, there's a lot more peace of mind because lots of the work's done, and the agents can do a lot of stuff ahead of time too, get, you know, paperwork and getting all the deed, you know, the deed and tax information and rooms measured, all that stuff that normally takes time. It can be done in advance.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. We had a resident do advanced pictures for their home because one of their big selling points was the fall foliage here.
Yep.
But we're selling their house in the winter, so they got the pictures done in the fall to show all the seasons that exist in their house. So
yeah, and believe it or not, winter shots are not unpopular either. The only thing I would say is do it typically when you've got a fresh blanket of snow, you know, so it looks like a winter wonderland versus, you know, the browns, you know, sort of road salt snow that we might see.
Exactly. Actually, right on topic, any tips on staging home for winter or early spring sale of home? Well, apart from the fresh blanket of snow.
Yeah, it really is this. Staging evokes a feeling, and it's the reason why if you look at model homes and new construction neighborhoods and things of that nature over the years, the reason those things were done is because people walk into a property and they start to say, okay, this is how I'm going to live. And we tell people, look, you don't live in your house the way you're going to get it looking when you're ready to sell your house. But there are others that, you know, it might be more cluttered or a little bit less clean when you're living in your own house because you got pets and kids and grandkids and all of that kind of thing going on. And but you want it to be that way when you're on the market, because even though people may live the same way you do, they don't look at it that way when they're a buyer. They look at it in this new world kind of a set of eyeballs, and they think, this is how I'm going to live in my new house. And they move in thinking they're going to be living in a perfectly clean, pristine, freshly painted house. And in 6 months, they're back to their own lifestyle. So, but you want to evoke a feeling. And so depending on the timing of the winter, if it's in the holidays, you know, properties tend to look really great during the holidays, and they tend to smell really great. Lots of baking and things going on. And, you know, it really depends. And there's holiday decorations. We don't tell people, take down everything in your house, make it look like nothing. It's got to evoke a feeling. And so I'll give you one example. There might be a wall where you've got 100 photographs on that wall, and you might not need 100, but you don't take down every family photo. You might say, all right, we're going to make this look well, we're going to have pictures of the family up there, but we don't want it to look so cluttered that they get lost thinking, oh my God, I can't even think in this room. It's so overwhelming. So that's a good conversation to have, again, in advance. If you've got the time, engage with us or engage with somebody to take you through that. And honestly, when you're not ready to put it on the market, the conversation is far less stressful because you're not like, oh my God, I'm going to have to do this for the next 3 weekends. This is going to drive me crazy. I'm not going to have a life. You're talking about the future. It's always easier.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what are the disclosures required or important to pay attention to, et cetera?
Yes. So as a property owner selling a property, the realtors have a uniform disclosure form, and it is just a Q&A that the property owner goes through. And my best advice on disclosures is if you know of something that might be derogatory about the property, when would be the best time for the buyer to know that? And in my opinion, and this has been borne out over the years, is if you're able to disclose because you know about it. When I say able, you can't disclose something you don't know. But when you're able to disclose prior to the buyer purchasing, they're far more likely to take it as with its warts, if you will, than finding out after the fact. And so I'm a big believer in using the uniform disclosure form provided by the realtor organization. And that way, you as a property owner have a lot less likelihood to be drawn into a failure to disclose material defects about the property.
All right. So next question is, do you have any insights about agencies such as We Buy Ugly Houses and others like it?
Well, I want to be respectful of all buyers out there, and that is my experience has been that these organizations are willing to buy with the idea that they're going to buy the property without, in some cases, offer cash, very easy terms, and they'll sell it later. And why is that? Why is that the case? Why do they have billboards all over the place offering to buy property or television advertisements? They're buying. This is a generalization, but in a lot of cases, they may be buying at a discount. And because they're going to offer easy terms, they discount their offer over market value. And listen, there may be some validity for a property owner. Some property owners may say, I don't want to go through a big process, and I'm willing to take $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 off the top of the price and sell it to somebody else that makes it easy for me. That becomes your decision. But I would say this. It's always one of those things where if you could still put it on the market and offer it to these companies at the same time that it's listed, because you'll then determine how much they're willing to pay or not pay, and you still have it exposed to the world. Most of these companies, when sellers reach out to them, the property's not listed. And so you're really only dealing of a pool of buyers of them versus the world of potential buyers that might be out there in your price point and in your location.
Absolutely. All right, so we do still have quite a few questions left. So I do just want to let everybody know if for some reason we end up going over our time, we will make sure that all questions are answered and send those answers to you. But the next question we have here is selling a house as is possible?
Yes, it is. You do have some disclosures that need to be made, and and what they are is you've got to make a lead paint disclosure. That's federal law. You've got to make a radon disclosure. The broker has to make a radon disclosure and ask the seller for the information. And if the seller doesn't know, the broker has to disclose that. Insulation is also a disclosure. And septic is a disclosure. And those are required by the state upon the licensee to ask the seller, and then the seller has to respond to those items. Everything else can be sold as is. Now, the live discussion that I get into, Katie, with sellers about this is, listen, if you're willfully withholding something, let's have a conversation about that. In other words, if you know that the roof is at the end of its lifestyle and the buyer's not doing a home inspection, there's a really good chance after the fact, even though you've sold it as is, that you might get drawn into some kind of a legal dispute. That is a game time discussion with your real estate professional. But yes, it is possible to sell under certain conditions the home as is.
Right. So next question is your thoughts on ADUs.
Love them. I love them. And the reason being is because, number one, housing we've already talked about this idea of affordability. And an accessory dwelling unit is one where we had a client of ours who bought a house, built an accessory dwelling unit on the back of the house. Totally allowed for in the municipalities that she lived in, built it in accordance with the building codes and so forth, and rented it out. Certainly helped her with income, and she lived in the main house. Well, now her children have moved, and she's got the property that is now way too big for her. And we talked to her about the possibility of selling the property. And you know what, she came to the self-discovered, Katie, you know what, wait a minute, I can keep the house. My tenant, it just so happened that her tenant moved out of the accessory dwelling unit. She goes, I can live in this. It's brand new. It's only a couple of years old. I'll move in here, move out of the main house, and I'll rent that out. And so it gives some options, but also an accessory dwelling unit. We've had clients that moved. We had one client sell a house with us, moved into a family member's house and built an accessory dwelling unit. It was his and hers daughter, and they moved in with their adult daughter and her family, and in an accessory dwelling unit. So I don't mind them at all. I think if there's any way we can increase the housing stock with little to no risk, it's that way. And look at the way this country was built in the early days, especially in municipalities. They were built with 2 families and 3 families and 4 families, and that's why if you take a city like Manchester, you see 3-deckers and 4 families and 2 duplexes all over the place. And they were done as a way of building affordably on building lots.
So there's actually an add-on question a little bit farther down, which is how much have you seen good ADUs add? And there's a sub-comment of, we have a beautiful ADU, 880 square feet, and it seems like the appraisers are hardly giving it any value. Well,
don't worry. Now, if you mean by appraisers, tax assessors, don't let that bother you. If you're meaning appraisers because you're looking to refinance, if you've got a realtor, engage with your realtor. If not, you can engage with us. We can help make that argument if you're looking to refinance your mortgage or something to get more value out of your property. My personal feeling is they should treat the accessory dwelling unit on a single family house as what it would cost to add that. First of all, look at the cost valuation and then look at the market rent that might be generated from it. Appraisers can, when looking at both of those things, they also now, because they're a little more prevalent, they can use sales comparison data, but you might need to engage somebody, a realtor, to also assist you there. But there's more and more acceptance of accessory dwelling units, especially if they're done with permits.
Awesome. Next question is, how are sales of second home properties going? I have a home near Waterville Valley, New Hampshire.
Second homes are still going very, very well, and here's why. There's been no dilution of value in secondary homes. Usually when markets have these huge corrections, that's one of the first things we start to see is second homes, because people start to say, well, I'm not going to, things are tight, I'm not going to buy a vacation property, or things are tight, we'll keep the main house and sell the vacation property. And so because of those two reasons, you get an increase in supply and a decrease in demand, and those are the first things to get hit. However, the big variable that has happened in this current time versus all other current times is VRBO and Airbnb is something that's really only happened in the last 10-ish years. And so because of that, there's plenty of people who are buying vacation properties strictly as investments. And so providing there is not a restriction on the rentability of the property, that's really helped keep the values propped up on vacation properties. There's been no deletion of value at all. So get some good skiing in at Waterville Valley.
I was thinking the same thing. So who does the most legal work for a sale, the buyer's agent or the seller's agent?
Well, first of all, legal work. It's important to realize is that realtors and real estate agents are not attorneys. And so we can't practice law. So if there's some sort of legal requirement for something to be done, we might refer you to an attorney. But let's just talk about work. Both sides do a lot of work for their clients. And so I would say it's kind of a down the middle kind of thing. Now, in different markets, meaning a market where the market time is closer, where it's a buyer's market and the market time is closer to 4, 5, 6 months on the market for a seller, I might argue that the seller's agent's doing a lot more work because they're working for longer. But in this market, I would say it's pretty equal.
All right. One question we have is, how do you choose a realtor when you have several friends who are realtors?
Pick me. Well, I think the most important thing is, you might hear this as you think, well, I can't pick any of my friends because I don't want to upset any. And I will say, having worked with so many friends of mine over the years, there's more pressure on the agent when working in a close relationship with family or friends. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing because, in my opinion, I think there's more pressure because there's more risk, and that's the relationship is always at risk. And so it's kind of like if I want to take a trip and I'm going to use my car versus an airplane, I'm going to be a lot more careful in an airplane than I am in my car because I'm so used to the car, right? In this particular case, I would say if you've got so many friends, either talk to a couple and determine from there which you're going to choose, or think of this. How are they going to feel if you talk to none of them and you just say, I decided to talk to none of you because I didn't want you to be upset? Is that going to happen? They're going to say, that doesn't seem like a good strategy. I'd rather hear the reason I selected this person is because they were willing to do this for me. And I love you, but I chose someone else.
Awesome. Thank you. So Bill, it is 2:01. It looks like we have 3 questions left.
Let's take them. No, let's take all 3. I will take those 3 questions and then I do have to go, but
okay.
Go ahead.
So what are good questions to ask that are not disclosed?
I'm not sure what that means. Let's go to the next question, and maybe that person that just asked that question can type something else in for clarity, and then I'll get to it last. So what's the next question?
Sure. A note from Dennis. I have a 1-bedroom condo for sale in Carroll County. Few visitors and no offers in 2 fall to winter season months. so much less interest than 2022 and early 2023. Any marketing ideas?
Is this so I'm going to assume that this is for sale. And if it's for sale, what I would suggest is that you get with the broker that has the listing and have them pull as much data on property sales during this window of winter, if you will, and figure out what has sold last year during those months, what has sold in the year prior to that, and then what's sold this year so far. And just get a determination clearly about whether your pricing's accurate. Because this market is, first of all, the technology is such that the world should know it's available. So I would make sure that it's, that it's listed and available for all to see. And then secondly, if you're not getting activity, even in Carroll County, I mean, you saw that when we looked at the county numbers, they're up everywhere. And so I would just sort of get a sense whether you're priced in the market or just outside of the market. Get with your broker. If it's not currently listed, have a discussion with them or somebody that's pretty active in your town.
All right. So there wasn't a comment on the other question, but is it a positive or negative to sell a home partially or fully furnished?
That is a loaded question. And so the answer is it depends. And reason being is some properties look better empty. But think about this. Have you ever moved out of your house and you move out and it's completely empty and you go, oh my God, look at these carpets. Oh my God, this needs to be painted, or oh my God. So sometimes furniture will help. And so I think it really comes down to a visit with a real estate professional to give you some guidance there. That may be a personal visit on the property itself. And it really does depend. Some properties look awesome empty. Some look awesome with stuff in them. So, and not the other, right? In other words, if you started putting stuff in, it might be too cluttered. So that's a game time decision, as I said before. That's my safe answer is it always depends.
So it does look like we got a reply back on that original question. So what are the important and best questions to ask to fully know as much as can be possible before buying a property? Oh,
okay. So they're coming at it from the buy side. So here is the really important thing that I would be looking at. Make sure that you've got the uniform real estate disclosure form filled out by the National Association of Realtors, or if you're buying in another state, determine from your realtor that if there is one, and get a look at that. We recommend to our buyers that they get home inspections, because even in a market like this, we're finding sellers are more willing today to offer some terms that are more buyer friendly. A home inspection helps a lot. And there's also warranties that can be purchased prior to closing. They're easier to buy prior to closing. And that may be something to consider. Home warranties are gaining in popularity in the Northeast. They're pretty widespread in other parts of the country.
Awesome. And then just one really quick question that popped in, if you don't mind, which is MLS, Zillow, Realtor Redfin. Do you think the Boston Globe and New York Times real estate sections are good?
So all of them, some of the listing aggregating applications out there, Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, any of them, even certain real estate websites are good. But here's what I'll tell you. This market is one where the technology does not know about an upcoming listing prior to the real estate companies and agents. The technology is actually slower than the market. And so oftentimes, like, we have a firm like ours, we have 420 agents. And so we have conversations in our firm all the time about listings that are about to come on the market. And in some cases, we have advanced knowledge. And so any of the websites are good. And I would just say, don't rely on any one if you're an active buyer, don't rely on just one, look in a couple of different websites or portals is a better term, because you may have conflicting information.
So basically just do your research.
Or have someone do it for
aspects.
You. Yep. Yep.
Correct. Well, those are all the questions that I see. So Bill, thank you so much for your knowledge and help in this webinar. It really was quite informative. And for anybody that's still on our webinar, if you have questions after the fact, feel free to just reply to your registration link that you would have received when you signed up, and we'll answer them. But any questions you have about real estate, Riverwoods, definitely reach out. And thank you again, Bill.
Well,
and
this was a
we'll
blast.
See everyone. Yes. And we'll see everyone at our next event.
All right. Thank you, Katie. We'll see you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.